Oh, welcome back to video form stream of thoughts because the stream uh broke down when I was doing it. And so I figured I'll do a cleaner version. So without further ado, let us begin. Oh dear. There we go. So today, well, as you can see by my title, talking about the short story released this week, although, well, last week when you're gonna be getting this. I believe I'll just release this Friday. But yes, the short story of Copernicus and his story. And I'll be talking about why I wanted to do that, why I wanted to do short stories in general, and kind of the thought process behind, well, the story. Not in that order, of course, but without further ado, let's start. I guess to start, the idea came to be when I don't know, there's been a lot of conflicting views on the world, sometimes literally and figuratively, just in the modern day. So, the examples I used were, the thoughts of the state of the Earth, the flat or round views, uh, thoughts on vaccination, and general thoughts on politics. I know, very big hitters, and while I'm not really one who desires to dabble, well, not dabble, to ignite those fires, or yeah, ignite those fires, what I wanted to show in this story is kind of, how do we deal with, well, two things. How do we deal with it, and what would happen if the side that was wrong was actually right? It's a flip on its own head, of which is kind of what the story provides. I mean, the general worldview back in the time was that the world was in the center of the universe. Of course, Copernicus was able to prove this wrong, although with some fragile research, some error, but he did, well, it was then further corrected later on, but the concept was there. I actually should mention that I didn't want to include, like, just the concept of, oh, he had errors because it could be misinterpreted as, yes, he was right, but he was wrong. Or right for the wrong reasons, and that wasn't really the point of the story. It was that the idea was there, and it's that pursuit of that led closer to the truth. And so that's why I chose to ignore that. Anyways, I'll talk further more into the story when it actually gets to talking about the story. I should be jumping around. I'm awfully jumpy today. But yeah, so this whole story is the view that is against social knowledge is correct, and it's actually the social view that is wrong, and what that would be like, or how do we fix that? How do we avoid this problem again? Not that it is not that it would be a frequent occurring problem, but just general views of acceptance or just being wrong. And the state of being wrong, how it feels to be wrong, things like that. So that's kind of where the story came from. And as to why this story specifically on Copernicus, well, it was just the name that came to my head, really. There's no real backstory or influence, unfortunately. So, had a lot more notes when I did this on stream, or a lot more thoughts going about it when I did it before. So pardon me if I try to reconnect the dots. Uh, and as no, I'll just keep going. So we have this concept, Copernicus going about. Actually, yeah, here's one I could talk about. I'm just going through my description. This concept of kind of the part real, part fictional, or part theoretical. Of course, well, we are able to ascertain the views and general opinions of the world at that time, but a lot of that was kind of just more. That was more lenient towards, more sided towards, ooh, more sided towards kind of kind of how I want to view things in that social era, and I kind of want to make ties to it to the modern era. So the way I go about the situation is how I talk about, for instance, how knowledge is social. Of so in the story, I talk about how religion has a very powerful hold in the time. It was cosmology, and also that I also emphasize the statement that you wouldn't want to do something that goes completely against kind of what is known in the world, what has been accepted as fact, and it's easier to just allow, or it's just easier to refuse change. That was kind of when I wanted it to kind of tie it to how it is in the modern day, and tie it to this concept that knowledge is social. Since there's not really enough time or space to actually physically observe things firsthand for everyone, a lot of things that are learned are through other people, or yeah, based on what they say, or other media. So as a result of that, we are able to input or process a lot more information, but at the cost of reliability. Now that's not to say that the things that everyone tells us is unreliable or that we shouldn't trust it, but it's the fact that sometimes these things need more consideration, especially as science and technology grows, changes, develops. I mean, we had the view that the Earth was in the center of the universe was held firmly based on previous assertions, previous statements, or perhaps just previous religious views. But now, with research, Copernicus was able to break that working theory. And so that's what I kind of wanted to bring about. That, hey, social knowledge can be corrected, can be fixed. It's not always perfect, and if it does, it needs to change despite it contradicting or going against the thought and will of individuals who hold said view. I believe that's everything I wanted to talk about social change. But I also, another tidbit I wanted to talk about was the concept of just settling things that are wrong, which is kind of that second part to the development, which is that, hey, everyone has varying opinions, well, not opinions, views, based on their own experiences, their own knowledge, their own assertions. And so the question is, how do we go about resolving it? What's the proper way? And once again, I bring up other views, so the world state, politics, things like that. And I kind of think about how we kind of socially treat people like that. And it feels like it feels a bit ridiculous. Not like ridiculous as in over the top, but an adjective form of ridicule. And that is, well, it's unacceptable. It kind of feels a bit like bullying. Well, it can be bullying if it's frequent, but either way, whether or not you're right or wrong doesn't matter. It's kind of working towards finding that truth, trying to work together to find an answer. That is what we should be doing. Of course, this is ideal for situations where sometimes it can't happen, but I'd like to believe that those situations are less frequent than we let them lead them believe they'd be. But the point is that, just because someone may or may not be wrong doesn't mean we just lead them to shame or don't bother listening to their side of the story. Because, well, you'd be surprised by Fuel's sense of logic. And it's a chance to help us learn, grow, and develop on our own as well. I say "are" like, I'll just happen to say "are," but just having two sides of the perspective. So, yeah. The point is that I know the phrase of being on that the victors are the ones that write history, and no one really knows about, the condition of the losers, but it shouldn't be that it shouldn't be a conquering side. It should be more of a constructive side, where we help teach each other, we help each other out, we support. It's easy to conquer, but a lot harder to actually negotiate and work through things with people. And that's kind of the lesson I want to take home here. That hey, not only can social views be wrong, but also but also how to actually approach an academic conflict or just a conflict in general. How do I, well, what's right and wrong could be very different in different circumstances, and various facts could be learned from each side that could lead to conflict and contradiction, but really, it's by gathering all those facts where we could actually make a proper conclusion. And that's what's important to help us move forward. Okay. I think I said everything I wanted to say about the piece. 13 minutes. Okay. Maybe I mentioned this, but it's technically not a perfect solution. It always takes time, and some people are just there's a chance that some people just can't be negotiated with, which is fair, but doesn't mean we don't give well, it doesn't mean we shouldn't give everyone a chance. Or yeah, just give people that chance at the very least. Now next, this is kind of on the business side of things. I want to do these stories. I mean, you've already seen me do one other here on the channel, but yeah. I don't know, the more I write them, the more fun I find them to do, but it also helps me with a lot of things that I kind of want to put out there. So I put here kind of, at least shows my applied knowledge of psychology. I mentioned already that the story does have theoretical concepts of how people would view kind of Copernicus at at that moment in time. That was me. And while sure those views were there, we don't really, well, I'm not really one to know the true reasoning behind it. My research on this concept was fairly light. Because, well, I wanted to apply myself. So here's our situation. What will happen? And so it was a good way to show kind of terms of applied psychology, which I love and is kind of something I might look for. Well, I will, hopefully, get further into. Also wanted to do this because it's just creative in a different sense. I mean, I've done some visual creative things, but writing's also just it's a different form of creativity, and it's fun to actually pull that. Just, yeah, just pull it out every once in a while, and make something out of it. And so, chance for me to show creativity and apply psychology, and I guess in general also kind of shows, I guess, age and maturity. This one's a weird one, because, well, it's weird. I always want to say the word wisdom, but it feels like a word that shouldn't really be touched too much. But yeah, there are some lessons that only, well, there's some lessons, some conclusions that only some people could find. And it's up to them to share their conclusions with the world. I know, pretty comedic after discussing the story, but I want to show that, hey, these are the lessons I learned, and here's what I want to share. And while that's good for just showing myself, my identity, if you will, also just good to just share it, put it out there in the world. Don't know if anyone will see it. Don't know if anyone will see this. But at the very least, it's out there. At least I've made my peace with it. Huh. I think that is everything on how I want to talk about things. Yeah, that is pretty much it. I talked about projects, short stories, why I want to do them. Yeah, I guess in general, talking more about that, about short stories. Lost my train of thought. It's a good creative thing to put out there, I guess. Yeah, a different creative thing. To put out there. Ah, okay, done. Whew. Well, normally this would be the part of the stream where I talked about what's happening next week. But, well, that's actually, well, technically this is coming out after said next week. This is supposed to come out on Saturday the 14th as a stream. But, some errors had to make me redo it. And so you're getting this Friday of the week after. But hey, at that point, hey, tell me how. Tell me how the cover went. Unless things got really awkward and disastrous and I couldn't actually pull it off. But I doubt it. Huh. Well, that's everything from me. Well. Still don't know how to end these. I think in the stream I said ciao. So yeah, ciao.